It's August 1st. The Premier League starts in 2 weeks' time, and Liverpool have had their initial bid for Alexander Isak rejected by Newcastle. There's a lot to cover, and this is an ever-changing story. But even in the last hour, there's been a shift on the reporting from the BBC themselves. So we'll get into all of that. I'm going to try to cover this to the best of my ability. Beyond that, Liverpool have had a deal with Adidas that has officially started today. Adidas and Liverpool back again, reunited. The kits look amazing. We'll look at some of the pictures of the kits. And I'm just super stoked to get into this Premier League season. I'll have my predictions out before the season starts. And I'm excited to see how the transfer window goes. We'll dive into the Isak news, other Liverpool news, and all the works. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing, like the video if you end up enjoying, and comment down below with your thoughts on Isak, Liverpool, and Adidas, and other transfer news that's going around the league and all of world football. Let's get into it with the news. So the reports start with David Ornstein a few hours ago, basically saying that Newcastle had rejected an official bid from Liverpool for Alexander Isak. A few days ago, the approach was informal, and now we have this official bid that has gotten rejected. And as the reports have kind of come out from other journalists around England, there has been more details, more of a, it's a kind of a complicated picture when you really paint it all out. But Newcastle are suggesting a new deal with a 2026 release clause, and obviously teammates at Newcastle of Alexander Isak are trying to push for him to stay, and Isak still wants to move, according to Ornstein, but wants move is the last part of that. We'll start with Ben Jacobs on the Newcastle side, who had reported that Newcastle have rejected a formal bid for Alexander Isak, as David Ornstein called, and he basically has this blurb here that I think is the most interesting part of this tweet that says LFC have previously told Newcastle they were willing to pay around £120 million, and that Richard Hughes had made a formal offer. He then goes on to put a lot of context to this later in the day. As I was recording, he posted this and he said, Liverpool say no second bid planned as it stands, as revealed, and that the initial bid was £110 million fixed, no add-ons. Personal terms with Isak is not the problem here, which is good. And that Liverpool had bid with optimism this morning, but Newcastle's response was so quick and strong, another bid is not currently in the works. So that follow this train of thought that's going on here, because there's a bit of a reveal here in regards to the BBC reporting and how that's kind of different and contradictory. Key now is how Isak responds. Newcastle hoping he reintegrates and are preparing to offer him a new contract, likely with the ability to leave next summer. Should Isak double down and continue to push for a move and Newcastle find striker replacements, Liverpool could revisit their stance, but only if Newcastle United contact them to offer encouragement. Liverpool won't bid again unless Newcastle indicate they will discuss a sale. So basically, it's come to a point where the initial bid was so firmly rejected that Liverpool have kind of stepped away. That's what Ben Jacobs is reporting. We also have Craig Hope, another guy on the Newcastle side, who said Liverpool say they will not make a second offer after unsettling Isak and going in way below the number they know could make a deal happen. All of this just for that, a tactic. We're ready to leave Isak in limbo and walk away a month until the window closes, he posts. So he's kind of stirring the pot, basically saying that Liverpool had said it was going to be a British transfer record. They come in with a low ball offer, and now Newcastle, they immediately reject it, and it's kind of frayed the ability for a deal to possibly happen. And what's the whole point of it? You know, like you said, a month until the window closes, 2 weeks until the first game of the season. Liverpool and Newcastle play each other, I believe, on the second game of the season. So if you're Newcastle, you don't want to face Isak during that. But as we know, Newcastle's whole transfer window has been an absolute shambles. They've been in a spot where they haven't been able to get the likes of Trafford or Pedro, Ekatike, It's just been, they might lose Sheshko to United. That's another guy they were looking at recently. They wanted Mbuemo. They lost him to United. There's a lot of kind of sway as to how Newcastle will finish this window, how they'll approach the window. You know, do they want to go and sign somebody before Isak leaves? Who knows? But Ian Doyle on the Liverpool side had also reported LFC indeed won't be making a second bid for Alexander Isak as things stand, given the clarity of Newcastle's swift and emphatic response. The Reds offered £110 million. So it was reported that would be in the region of 120 initially. That was the initial reports, but that wasn't like a definitive report. That was like the informal kind of thing. And now 110 is what Liverpool come in with. And Newcastle are just so outright upset with that offer that they say no immediately, I imagine. And, you know, the way that's kind of played out is this is the most... Wait, where is it? I got to find this exactly. Okay, here we go. So this is the most recent kind of discussion of things from the BBC. This is the first post. This is right around when Craig Hope and Ben Jacobs were reporting it. They say Liverpool are pulling out of a deal for Alexander Isak after $110 million bid. No add-ons to Newcastle was rejected. That was the first tweet. The second tweet is this. Liverpool are willing, because they deleted this first tweet, and then they go and they post this, which basically says Liverpool are willing to walk away from a move for Alexander Isak. Newcastle turned down a bid of £110 million from the Premier League champions. This says that they're pulling out. This within the last hour, and all these other tweets and things I showed you have been for a few hours now, kind of unfolding over the last like 6 to 5 to 4 hours. And then you get this. And I just don't know who to trust anymore. You know, it's tough to say. My expectation with how I imagine things are going to go down is this is just a prediction. So, and this isn't news. This is news though. Them deleting this initial tweet that said they are pulling out and then not retweeting, but putting out a new tweet that says that Liverpool are willing to walk away, not that they have pulled out. So it's all over the place. Who knows? For me, it seems like Newcastle want to get all their eggs in not one basket, but they want to get all their ducks in a row. That's what I want to say, not eggs in a basket. They want to get all their ducks in a row. They want to make sure that they could get, because they've already lost Callum Wilson to West Ham. Some people aren't maybe privy to that if you're not following Newcastle, but they've lost Callum Wilson to West Ham. If they lose Isak, they have Osula up front. That's it. They are in a terrible position to go out and spend that Isak money if they've already sold them, you know. But it's tough because they haven't been able to bring in anybody. They haven't been able to bring in João Pedro. They haven't been able to bring in, I think they were linked to the lap. They were linked to Mbuemo. They couldn't bring him in. They want Wissa. Wissa might cost them 60 M's. If 60 million is what you get for Wissa, he might go for 50, 40, who knows? Might go for less. But they want Wissa. If you can't get Wissa, you know, Osimhen just joined Galatasaray. Gyökeres has gone to Arsenal. Everyone's basically bought a player. No one's going to be there to spend the money on Isak. But at the same time, you know, it seems to me they'll go and sign 2 forwards probably. At least. Bare minimum, they need 2. Bare minimum, they need 2. They might need 3. Because, you know, you're losing Isak, but you've already lost Callum Wilson, and you only have Osula. With that kind of, you know, lack of depth up front, you want at least a proven striker, a player like Wissa who could play as maybe a striker or as a winger, and maybe one more depth option, either on the wings or a versatile forward. You want 2 versatile forwards and a proven striker. What I would say, because I want this deal to happen, and we'll move on to the Adidas stuff because I've been kind of yapping now. But what I would want to happen, what I would do if I was Newcastle in this situation, you go and you spend, like not a ton of money on signing. It might be around the fee that you'll get for Isak probably in total if you look at it, but sign Wissa, because I do think Wissa is a good player and I think he would provide a lot. Watkins, Villa might not want to sell, but I think Isak is a far, far more proven player than Ollie Watkins. He's a better player. He's in the conversation for top strikers in the world. Watkins feels a little out of that. And he's also kind of been in and out of that Villa lineup, kind of like towards the back end of last season. But he's not the player that Isak is, but he's a great Premier League striker. You get him and you get Wissa and you get one more player. I don't know who that would be, in terms of them going out and signing another forward. Would they want a guy on the right-hand side, a guy through the middle, a guy on the left? Probably someone who could probably play all across the front line as well, or play more traditionally as a striker, but also play as a winger. There's not a lot of options there. I'm trying to think of literally anybody else. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. The market is so thin right now that you can't, like, even Sheshko would cost you 70. I think you could get Watkins for cheaper. I think you could get him and Vissa for, like, honestly, probably close to like 80, 90 M's, maybe just under 100. And then you spend another like 25, 30 on a kind of striker option to rotate with Watkins, who could also play on the wing. I don't think that's too bad to try to replace Isak. Obviously, they have other areas of the pitch that they have to invest in, but they have one of the best midfields in the league. They have a pretty decent defense. I know they've been looking to strengthen in goal, but I don't know what they're gonna do, because I don't, Isak's not even training with them. He's in Sociedad as old club training. So, point aside, I've been rambling a lot, but Liverpool have officially signed a 10-year new kit deal with Adidas, and it officially begins today, August 1st, 2 weeks from the start of the Premier League, and it is worth way over the reported £600 million sum. Way over leads me to believe it's closer to 650, 700. I doubt it's at the 800 mark. If it is, that would be crazy. But let's just say 600 M's to be precise, because I want to kind of talk about where Liverpool can go after this rejection of Isak potentially, who else they could sign. But I want to talk about the kit and the kit itself, the implications of the finances. Florian Wirtz, he's taking number 7. Kirkez is taking number 6. Frimpong is taking his number 30 that he's worn at Leverkusen, I believe at Celtic as well. I could be wrong on that last part. But Connor Bradley is now number 12, same number as Trent at Real Madrid, which is kind of cheeky, but it's also nice to see Connor Bradley get like a lower squad number, because I think he's going to get a lot of game time. And Hugo Ekitike, Mr. Palindrome, taking number 22. There you can see a little look at some of the kits. We'll look at the official announcement, and it just looks fantastic. And the Adidas Liverpool connection it's top tier. The fact that they're working together again makes me thrilled. I love how both home and away kits look. They haven't really unveiled the third kit, but I imagine they'll do a separate thing for that. And there's just a bunch of pictures we could look through, and then we'll kind of look at some more Liverpool news and talk about the 600M deal, 600M plus deal. But there you can see, a bunch of players wearing it. Florian, McAllister, Salah, Gravenberch, Van Dijk as well in the away kit. cost us. Um, you know, I think they knocked it out of the park with both kits. Um, the black shorts I don't love on this. I wish they were white shorts, but it just looks a bit like a United kit with the amount of like, with the black shorts, because Liverpool is usually just like a single color club. But I understand why, you know, they would like to add maybe a bit more detail. So I'm not mad with it. Like totally, I've seen people online be like really upset about that. But point aside, I think the kits look great. I think the long sleeves look incredible. I honestly got to get at least a long sleeve and a regular sleeve version of at least the home kit, and then I don't know. I'm thinking about waiting for the third kit because the green looks crazy. Um, but point aside, 600 million. What does that mean? 10-year deal. It says it's way more than the reported 600 million sum, but the way I see it is at most like just to keep wiggle room there for Liverpool. This is 700 million at like most, if we're being pragmatic, closer to. It feels like 800. That's just crazy, but 600 million over 10 years, that's 60 million a year that Liverpool are basically getting to put towards transfer fees, to put towards things that they build at the club. And I think if you kind of look at the Isak deal, you know, and the way that Liverpool have been spending, and the sums of money that they're getting for winning the Premier League, being in the Champions League, competing in the Champions League this next season, probably finishing top like 2-3 the season after, the amount of money that'll come in for Liverpool, even with the player sales like Diaz, who we'll get to in just a moment as we wrap things up. But that's like 60 to 70 million that you could kind of just like put there. Obviously, that's not how PSR works entirely, but with that 70 million, the Isak deal looks a lot more likely that it could happen. Obviously, this financial deal has been kind of put into place a long time ago. There's a lot of details to it, and it's not as simple as just saying, "Oh, we have 70 million now for the season, or 60 million. Let's go put it towards Isak immediately." But it does mean that Liverpool are getting a lot of wiggle room. A baseline of like 60 to 70 million minimum each season just from having the partnership with Adidas again. That's something that could genuinely put Liverpool in a place where, maybe they're not spending at this degree every summer, but, next summer they buy 1-2 players and don't spend a ton like the summer before, like with Mamardashvili and Chiesa. But with this upcoming summer, they kind of just, or the current summer, I should say, they've been spending a ton. They could still spend a lot on potentially Isak. If they don't sign Isak, what do I think is going to happen? I'm thinking Guehi becomes far more of a priority target. He should be a top tier target, or at least a center back in any way, shape, or form. Because as much as I like Gomez, Konate, and Van Dijk, just the three of them seems like you're almost asking for something bad to happen. And I don't want to see Liverpool in that situation. So I'd like to see them get at least, someone like Guehi, who's a, Premier League proven center back. How he fit into the team, I don't know the deeper metrics off the top of my head. But, you're like, we'll just quickly look here at Liverpool's lineup and Newcastle's lineup to just kind of wrap things up. And then we'll have some final tidbits of Liverpool news. But you look at Liverpool's bench, there's not even another center back there that's on the bench, because Gomez is already hurt. Konate, he's a little more reliable than Gomez, but he's also got his injury issues. Van Dijk, I mean, he's been good for the last couple of seasons in terms of, remaining healthy, but at the same time, like, you don't know. You just don't know what happens. It's 3 center backs when you're playing 3 games, like a game every 3 days. Yeah. So you're playing like 3 games a week almost on average or thereabouts, 2.5, 3 games for the whole season with just 3 center back options. Now, for me, you can make an argument that if you need Endo to fill in, sure, but like, is that going to happen continuously? Is that going to happen consistently? For the front line, though, for Liverpool, I don't mind the look of it. I think even this is something that we could get excited about and look forward to. But I do think Liverpool, if they get Isak, it's probably going to be more of like a 4-4-2 or a 4-2-2 where you're going to see Ekitike and Isak up top next to each other sometimes. Maybe Isak just through the middle with Gakpo on the left. Wirtz is going to be basically playing through the middle. And if you have Wirtz and you have Szoboszlai and Gravenberch behind him, I think that could work as a midfield 3. Obviously, it'll be more of like kind of like a 4 with these two in a box midfield with Van Dijk and Konate, and then the fullbacks are going to be doing their thing. I feel like if you don't get Isak, you go and you get Guehi, definitely. Maybe someone like Malik Fofana. And if Nunez, who's linked to leave, Harvey, who's linked to leave, and Chiesa, who's not even with the team, who's also linked to leave, if all those guys leave, and I don't know what situation with Bajcetic is, he might still be injured. Morton is also linked to a move, which we'll talk to in a second as I wrap up. Talk about in a second as soon as I wrap up. Alisson's also back in Liverpool due to an injury I believe he sustained, but Mamardashvili played pretty fine, I think. I don't know what his stats are even looking like. That's just his La Liga stats. But for me, Liverpool, they need Guehi. They need at least another forward option, even if they don't get Isak. And I don't know if that's Rodrigo. I don't know if that's just Malik Fofana. I don't know if they get any forward options if they don't get Isak. I don't know what Liverpool's MO is, but I know they could spend more money. We all know they can spend more money. They have at least 110 million that they're willing to spend on Isak. Will they be willing to spend that amount of money on other players in the squad? I'm just looking at it. Guehi, he's kind of a must because I don't see us linked to any other center backs. I'd want him bare minimum and another center back, but I get if he wants to use Endo or Gravenberch there occasionally for cover. And maybe there's somebody in the academy that we're not aware of who was like on that path that Kwanzaa was on before he was sold that could get more minutes, who's actually like a half decent player as well, but you never know with that. Obviously, Rio and Gamoa, he got a goal. He's going to be an option, and I don't know if Arne Slot said something like, we're going to need all our players. Like, it's like, he's young, but we don't want to kind of just throw him into the pit immediately. There's just like a lot to consider, but he kind of hinted that he will be getting some game time as it comes and as, he progresses in training. And I imagine Trey Nyoini also getting some play time. He also got a goal in this game, didn't he? Yeah. So those two, honestly, they look really exciting. Harvey, I could see leaving. Darwin and Chiesa, I could see leaving. If those 3 leave, I think you need to bring in the center back, ideally 2, a winger, and Isak, if you're able to get across the line. Because for me, that's really all this team's missing. If you had Isak here, you had, say, Malik Fofana in this situation, Guehi, and then some like 22-year-old center back or 23, 24-year-old who's willing to also kind of compete, maybe even younger. You don't know. I don't know who else I'd want there because we're not linked to anyone besides Guehi, but that's the profile I'd want. Somebody who's a bit younger, willing to be an understudy to both Konate and Van Dijk, willing to be the 4th choice center back, to get some Champions League games, maybe occasionally, to get some cup games, to be in the mix, really. But, even then, he'd be 5th, really, because you'd have Gomez, and Gomez, I imagine. So you'd want somebody even younger than that, who's even less experienced, who'd be happy to get their Premier League debut at Liverpool type thing. Point aside, Guehi, prospect center back, and Malik Fofana and Isak, I think that's the most ideal thing, unless another wide player comes into the mix, that'd be interesting. I'd want someone who could play ideally more so on the right, but could also play on the left. I don't know if Fofana fits that profile to a T, but I think it'd be interesting. With Newcastle, man, this is the Arsenal game. They lost to Arsenal, but they also lost to the K-League All-Stars. And this isn't me trying to have a dig at Newcastle. I just want to paint the picture of what things look like without Isak, without any other additions as well. Because they have like an extended bench here. Isak, they're saying thigh injury mid-August. We all know that that's kind of like hogwash because he's been training with the Sociedad team. He's not even training in Newcastle or with their medical team. So for an injury that he's apparently rehabbing. So you look at the lineup here and in the bench, and Pope, Burn, Lascelles. I mean, obviously Botman's on the bench, but Botman got subbed after 70 minutes. I don't know what's up with that. I don't think he started the next game either. So I don't know if he's injured. But Fabian Schär, Matt Target, Livramento. I mean, if you add any of them to the back line, I guess you'd have a starting lineup of ideally for them: Pope, Livramento, Botman, Schär or Burn, Target. The midfield, you probably want Jolinton alongside Tonal and Guimaraes, which is fine. Alanga on the right he's been starting on the right, so I imagine he's taking up the right-hand side as with Jacob Murphy off the bench. Or is he still on the team? Yeah, he is. Okay. But that's not bad on the right-hand side of the attack. The left-hand side, honestly, isn't terrible either. You have Harvey Barnes and Gordon. That's a decent too. But Osula, I don't think you could trust whatsoever. He's 21. Trust to replace Isak, I should say. Like, I'm not saying he doesn't deserve a chance, but like as the sole replacement, if you don't bring in anybody, because it's tightening now, and you're looking at who could they bring in. Watkins wouldn't be bad for this lineup. Watkins would be great for this lineup. I think Šeško would do decent as well, but Šeško is a bit more pricey, and I'm not sure if Newcastle want to spend a ton on a ton of money on a single player, or if they'd rather invest along the side. Wissa, it's interesting. He could kind of play through the middle, but he wouldn't be the same target man. You'd want at least some variety there with like a more traditional 9 and Wissa if you bring him in, because then Wissa could compete with Gordon. You could have, Harvey Barnes trying to compete on that left side, maybe even on the right side. You'd have some depth for sure if you even only brought in Wissa. But I think Wissa and Watkins, they'd be the smartest people for them to go and get. I don't know who else they could possibly get in this market that's like at a reasonable price, because it is kind of getting, to the business end. It's 2 weeks until till the start of the Premier League, and then a month until the end of the window. I'm just conflicted. If they sell Isak, I say you bring in Wissa, Watkins, and Watkins, and I don't know who I'd say as the third player. I mean, I think they have depth on the right-hand side with Murphy and Alanga, Gordon and Barnes on the left. If you bring in Wissa and Watkins, you have extra cover on the left even, and you have someone who could swap with Watkins occasionally to play as the striker, who could play alongside Watkins, and Gordon could maybe even play on the right or the left sometimes. You could do the kind of PSG thing where you have all, wide players through your front three, with Wissa as well, with these two on either flank. And then beyond that, I mean, I think that's kind of like probably the smartest thing you could do would be just buy those two and don't get a third forward actually, but go and get an upgrade on Nick Pope. Go and spend money on Mike Maignan, or maybe even a center back, bro. A center back would be huge for them. I don't know if they'd have it in their funds to go and get somebody, but Livramento, Botman, and then another guy to have Lascelles and Burn as your backups. I don't know if they feel like goalie. He's conceded 2 goals against Arsenal, but I don't know if they feel like Pope is really, you know, he had 8 clean sheets last season, 7.16. He was only available for 28 games of the 38, so that's not super inspiring. But I don't know. They have Lacodimos, who I don't think is really the level of what they're looking for, but either a goalie or a center back. If they'd have the funds lying around, I think going after someone like Magnan would be really good because, he's, looking to probably leave Milan. He was linked with the move to Chelsea, but I don't know if he'd be willing to go to Newcastle. I don't know if that's kind of like a move for him, but I believe him and Tonali played together, so maybe Tonali could tap him up. And then finally, this is Mohamed Salah posting to Luis Diaz, who left Liverpool yesterday or 2 days ago now, I believe. It was 2 days ago. He said, "Your energy, drive, and passion on the pitch have left a mark that won't be forgotten. We were truly lucky to have you at Liverpool, and it's been an honor to share part of your journey and success story. As a teammate, you were more than reliable. You were inspiring. As a friend, even more so. We all saw the strength it took to keep going through the tough times off the pitch. What you went through would have broken most, but you came back strong and gave everything for the club. That kind of resilience sets an example for others and earns nothing but respect. Wishing you all the best for what's next, Lucho." And then a little message there in Spanish at the end, the Colombian flag emoji. And I thought that was a wonderful post from Salah. I think it was beautiful. I think Liverpool did a brilliant piece of business. I think Lucho got his big money move. I think Bayern got a player who's for the next 3 or you're getting Luis Diaz in his prime. Genuinely. Like, I think this is his prime that he's entering, and he's the type of player who could go and, get like 15 and 7, in a season, or push to kind of like the high teens in terms of goals, and then also get somewhere around like almost double digits in assists. That's a great amount of goal contributions. It's a lot of money, but he offers a lot, and I think Bayern will be really happy with him joining. Luis Diaz responded with, "Thank you, Romano, at Mo Salah. Your words mean a lot to me. From the first day, you welcomed me with warmth, respect, and support, not just as a teammate, but as a brother. I've learned so much from you on and off the pitch. Your dedication and humility are an example to everyone in football, and I feel proud to have shared the field with someone like you. No matter where life takes me next, I'll carry these moments with me always. Much love to you and your family." So, an incredibly heartfelt exchange. It's awesome to see this. And I think Luis Diaz and Salah were great together. They played incredible football alongside each other, off, the left wing and right wing. But for me, I feel like I've seen a lot of people say that Luis Diaz, Bayern overpaid. I don't know if they overpaid because we don't know. We don't know. Luis Diaz has proven time and time again that he's a player who can bounce back, like this exchange has alluded to. But he's scored great goals. He's had incredible, moments of control with the ball. He's had purple patches and kind of cold streaks as well. So I'm not going to say that he's incredibly consistent, but he's a player who could do wonderful things. And in that front four, I feel like that front four feels like Bayern of old. There's been a couple seasons where Bayern has kind of faltered on the wings and been less than like inspiring going forward. Obviously, they had Lewandowski for a period, and that was a huge, potent source of their attack. But really, like, look at this next season, like not this season that's coming up, but the season after, when Musiala's back, and you have Kane, who sure will be a year older, but he's not all that old, and he'll be able to continue in the Bundesliga pretty expeditiously, I imagine. Olise, incredibly creative player entering his prime. Musiala, who will be off the back of an injury that, we'll see how he recovers from, but he's one of the best players in the world. So him kind of progressing is something you'll imagine will happen as well. And then Luis Diaz. by the time they're all really firing, Luis Diaz might be 30. But at the same time, you're looking at a situation where you'll have two of the best young players in the world and two of the most experienced players in their position in the world. And all of them are absolute ballers. All of them know how to play. They'll have that chemistry by then. And, you have a creative player who's, good at making chances on the right-hand side in Elise. You have an incredible ball carrier, another player who's great at making chances on the left, who could score goals better than Elise for sure. And Elise is no slouch with goal scoring either, but he's not Luis Diaz levels. Musiala, he's kind of in and around there as well. And then Kane is just an absolute goal machine. And you're looking at a front four that could do really well, is all I want to say. And I think people are kind of overblowing the 70 to 65 million fee that was paid for Luis Diaz. I still think that's brilliant business for a 28-year-old, but I think that's fair value, like as close to fair value as you can get. There's a chance that Bayern could end up, by the end of it, they're not going to sell him for that much by any means, but you're buying a player in his prime. You're not expecting to sell him that much unless he goes to Saudi, which, if I'm not mistaken, Liverpool has a release clause somewhere in there for that as well. And finally, I was mentioning Malik Fofana a lot throughout the day and throughout the video. But this is news that Liverpool are in talks with Lyon over a possible deal for midfielder Tyler Morton. The 22-year-old has been the subject of a number of inquiries this summer from clubs. Braga, Ipswich, Strasbourg, and West Ham have all expressed interest. Deal could be around 15 million. So, Lyon wants to sell a player. We have a player that they have a player that Liverpool are interested. That player is Malik Fofana. They've expressed interest a few times this summer. There's been reports at least of that. And he'd be an interesting addition to the squad. He'd be a youthful addition. I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and say, I know everything about Malik Fofana, because I don't. But he's a young, exciting, I believe, left wing player from Belgium who is around 20 years old, played with Turkey at Lyon. Lyon obviously had a lot of stuff going on over the summer and are in some financial peril. But if they sign Morton, we can maybe, do something that's similar to the Kwanzaa Leverkusen thing, where we sold a player to him and we bought a player from him. And we could maybe get somebody for like Malik Fofana for maybe 15, 20 mil, maybe less, because of this 15 million pound potential valuation of Tyler Morton. So that's just something to consider. Comment down below, though, with your thoughts on Adidas and Liverpool, Isak and all that transfer news, Tyler Morton, Luis Diaz leaving, all the stuff that I discussed in this video. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below. I think Liverpool are in an interesting position right now, 2 weeks until the window ends. I think Newcastle are in a far more precarious one, but still an interesting one nonetheless. So yeah, I don't know how this is going to go. I'll make another video if there's any updates, and I'll have my Premier League predictions out before match week 1, and I'll do the whole table, try to make it concise and quick and state my points. And we'll probably do another video on, like, I don't know, whether or not, your team, how they ranked in the what's it called? The transfer window. Yeah, we could do a transfer window tier list or something. But I've been talking a ton. I'm going to end this video and see you in the next one. I'm Sideline Sedo. Peace.